Every breakup tells two stories. One is easy to see, the other stays hidden beneath the surface. When it comes to someone with an avoidant attachment style, the hidden story is often the one that matters most. Many people believe an avoidant simply walks away, closes the door, and never looks back. Their silence seems cold, their distance feels final. Their calm appearance makes it seem as if the relationship meant very little. But psychology reveals a very different picture. The absence of visible emotion is not always the absence of emotion itself. In many cases, what looks like indifference is actually a deeply learned way of protecting the mind from emotional discomfort. This protection can delay grief, delay reflection, and delay the realization of what has truly been lost. That is why the emotional journey of an avoidant is often misunderstood by friends, partners, and even by avoidants themselves. While other people may cry, talk, and process their feelings immediately, an avoidant often keeps moving forward without fully recognizing what is happening inside. Days pass, weeks pass, sometimes months or even years pass before the emotional reality quietly begins to surface. By then, life has changed. Opportunities have disappeared. The person they lost may have already healed and moved on. That delayed awakening is one of the least understood parts of avoidant attachment, and it explains why their behavior can seem so confusing. This video is not about creating false hope or convincing anyone that every avoidant secretly regrets leaving. Human behavior is far more complex than that. Instead, this video explores the psychological patterns that researchers and therapists have observed in people with avoidant attachment styles. It explains why emotional distance often feels safe in the beginning, why relief can arrive before sadness, why regret is sometimes delayed, and why silence should never be used as the only measure of what another person feels. One of the biggest mistakes people make after a breakup is assuming they already know what is happening inside the other person's mind. We naturally interpret silence through our own emotional experience. If we miss someone, we expect them to show it. If we feel pain immediately, we expect them to feel the same. But avoidant attachment does not usually work that way. People with this attachment style often learned early in life that depending on others could lead to disappointment, rejection, or emotional overwhelm. Over time, their minds adapted by becoming highly independent and by pushing uncomfortable emotions into the background instead of dealing with them directly. This is not usually a conscious choice. It becomes an automatic survival strategy that shapes how they experience love, conflict, and loss. Because of this, what appears to be confidence after a breakup may actually be emotional postponement rather than emotional resolution. The feelings are not always gone. They are often delayed. That delay is where many of the biggest misunderstandings begin. Throughout this video, you will discover the stages that many avoidants go through after losing someone important. You will learn why relief often comes before regret, why distractions can temporarily hide emotional pain, and why quiet moments frequently become the turning point when long-suppressed emotions finally begin to emerge. You will also learn why some avoidants suddenly reconnect after a long period of silence, while others never return, even if they eventually recognize the value of the relationship they lost. Perhaps most importantly, you will understand why returning does not automatically mean someone has changed. Real emotional growth is measured by consistent actions, honest communication, and the willingness to face vulnerability instead of escaping from it. These are lessons that can help anyone, whether you are trying to understand a former partner, improve your current relationship, or simply gain a deeper understanding of human psychology. There are also several lesser-known psychological patterns that rarely receive enough attention. Many people believe grief follows the same timeline for everyone, but research suggests that emotional processing can look very different depending on attachment style. An avoidant's first emotional response may actually create the illusion that they have healed faster than everyone else. Yet in some cases, the opposite is true. The mind delays the hardest emotions until it believes they are safe enough to face. That means the emotional impact of losing someone can arrive long after the relationship has already ended. By the time those feelings appear, there may be no easy way to repair what was lost. This delayed recognition is one of the reasons avoidant relationships often leave both people confused. One person wonders why there was no visible sadness, The other may eventually wonder why the sadness arrived so late. Understanding this hidden process changes the way we interpret silence, distance, and emotional withdrawal. As this journey continues, you will see that the story is not simply about breakups. It is about emotional protection, learned behaviors, fear of vulnerability, and the complicated ways people try to keep themselves safe from pain. You will also discover why chasing answers from another person rarely brings lasting peace. The greatest understanding often comes from recognizing the psychological patterns behind the behavior instead of becoming trapped by endless questions about what someone is thinking. By the end of this video, you will have a much clearer picture of what losing someone can truly look like from the perspective of an avoidant, why their timeline often feels so different from everyone else's, and why the healthiest path forward is not built around waiting for another person's realization, but around strengthening your own emotional security and self-awareness. Some of what you hear today may challenge beliefs you have carried for a long time. Some parts may explain experiences that once seemed impossible to understand. Other moments may reveal why certain relationships followed patterns that repeated again and again without obvious reasons. The final stage is especially important because it explains why a small number of avoidants eventually reach out after long periods of silence, while many others never do, even if they privately recognize what they lost. That distinction can protect you from false expectations while helping you understand the difference between delayed awareness and genuine emotional growth. Welcome to the channel. If you enjoy thoughtful discussions about psychology, attachment styles, emotional intelligence, and healthier relationships backed by real psychological insights, you are in the right place. Subscribe now and join our community so you never miss future videos designed to help you better understand yourself and the people around you. Now, let's begin with the first stage and discover why, for many avoidants, losing someone does not start with regret at all. It starts with something completely unexpected. The first emotional response after the relationship ends is often the exact opposite of what most people expect. Many assume an avoidant immediately feels deep regret or starts missing the relationship from the very first day. In reality, that is often not how their emotional system works. For many avoidants, the first feeling is relief. This does not necessarily mean they never cared about their partner or that the relationship had no value. It usually means the pressure they had been carrying suddenly feels lighter. Relationships naturally involve emotional closeness, honest conversations, expectations, compromise, and moments of conflict. While these experiences can strengthen a secure relationship, they can feel overwhelming for someone with an avoidant attachment style. Emotional closeness may create an internal conflict, where one part of them wants connection, while another part fears losing independence or becoming emotionally trapped. As the relationship becomes more serious, their nervous system may begin interpreting normal relationship demands as stress instead of safety. Small disagreements can feel much bigger than they really are. Conversations about commitment may create anxiety instead of comfort. Even simple emotional needs from a loving partner can sometimes feel like pressure. When the relationship finally ends, all of that pressure disappears. The difficult conversations stop. The expectations fade away. Their phone becomes quieter. They no longer feel responsible for managing another person's emotions while trying to avoid their own discomfort. That sudden reduction in emotional intensity creates a sense of calm. To someone watching from the outside, it may look like they have moved on within days. They may continue working, laughing, socializing, and living as though nothing significant happened. This can be incredibly painful for the person left behind, because it appears as if the relationship never mattered. But what is happening internally is often much more complicated. Relief is not the same as healing. It is simply the temporary absence of emotional pressure. The deeper emotions have not necessarily been processed. They have only been pushed further into the background, where they can remain hidden until something later brings them back to the surface. This early relief also explains why avoidants rarely rush to reconnect immediately after a breakup. From their perspective, they finally have room to breathe. Their emotional system believes it has escaped the source of discomfort. The silence feels peaceful rather than lonely. Their independence feels restored. During this stage, they may genuinely believe ending the relationship was the correct decision because all they notice is the reduction of stress. They are measuring their emotional state by what has disappeared instead of by what has been lost. This difference is important because relief can create a false sense of certainty. It convinces them they have already processed the breakup when, in reality, they have only escaped the emotional intensity surrounding it. As time passes, this calm often begins to change. The mind cannot postpone emotional processing forever. What feels like freedom today can slowly become emotional emptiness tomorrow. The relief that once felt permanent begins fading as everyday life returns to normal. That is when another pattern usually appears. Instead of sitting quietly with difficult emotions, many avoidants instinctively keep themselves busy. This is rarely a carefully planned decision. Most are not consciously trying to run away from their feelings. Their minds simply move toward activity because activity feels safer than emotional reflection. Work becomes more important than ever. New projects suddenly demand attention. The gym becomes a daily habit. Travel plans appear. Social events increase. Dating apps become interesting. Social media scrolling fills quiet evenings. Every empty moment becomes another opportunity to stay occupied. Looking productive from the outside often hides an emotional strategy happening underneath. The busier life becomes, the fewer opportunities there are to think about what was lost. This coping style often works surprisingly well for a while because constant stimulation leaves very little room for uncomfortable emotions. Yet distraction and healing are completely different experiences. Healing requires allowing emotions to exist, understanding them, and learning from them. Distraction simply delays that process. It creates movement without emotional resolution. Someone can spend months filling every hour of every day while still carrying unresolved grief that quietly waits beneath the surface. Eventually, the excitement of new routines becomes ordinary. Work slows down, vacations end, friends become busy with their own lives. New relationships may not provide the emotional satisfaction they expected. As external distractions lose their power, the mind slowly regains the quiet space it had been avoiding. That silence becomes difficult because it leaves fewer places for hidden emotions to stay concealed. This is when the delayed grief that so many people misunderstand often begins to appear. Unlike someone who cries immediately after a breakup, an avoidant may experience sadness much later. The timing can feel confusing because life may already seem stable again. Their daily routine has returned. The crisis appears over. Yet without warning, ordinary moments begin carrying unexpected emotional weight. A familiar song starts playing in the background and suddenly reminds them of a conversation they had forgotten. Passing a favorite restaurant brings back memories of shared laughter. A quiet Sunday afternoon feels strangely empty without understanding why. Small routines once taken for granted begin revealing the absence of someone who quietly became part of everyday life. These moments rarely arrive all at once. They build slowly, almost unnoticed. Each memory adds another small piece until the emotional picture becomes impossible to ignore. This delayed grief often surprises avoidants because they believed they had already moved on. They cannot easily explain why emotions are becoming stronger months after the relationship ended instead of weaker. The answer lies in emotional suppression. Feelings that were postponed eventually demand attention. The mind can delay pain, but it cannot erase it. Once life becomes emotionally quiet enough, the postponed emotions finally have room to emerge. What looked like complete recovery now begins looking much more complicated. As these memories continue growing stronger, another shift quietly takes place. During the relationship, attention was often focused on problems, disagreements, or moments that felt emotionally overwhelming. After enough time has passed, that perspective slowly changes. The emotional intensity surrounding old conflicts fades, allowing meaningful memories to become more visible. Hindsight naturally reorganizes experience. Instead of remembering only stressful conversations, they begin remembering shared comfort, inside jokes, emotional support, peaceful evenings, and the sense of familiarity that existed beneath everyday life. New relationships, if they exist, are often compared against those memories without even realizing it. The excitement of meeting someone new cannot always replace the emotional safety that developed over months or years with someone who truly understood them. This comparison is not always dramatic. Sometimes it appears as a quiet realization that genuine connection is rarer than they once believed. Psychology shows that people often remember emotionally meaningful experiences more clearly over time, because the strongest emotional lessons remain while many smaller frustrations gradually lose their intensity. This growing awareness should not automatically be confused with regret. Regret is only one possible outcome. Sometimes what develops is simply a more accurate understanding of what the relationship actually provided. That growing awareness prepares the mind for an even deeper realization that cannot be avoided much longer. Losing someone teaches different lessons to different people. For some, the pain arrives immediately. For others, it takes time before the full weight of the loss becomes clear. That is often what makes avoidant attachment so difficult to understand. Emotional distance can create the feeling that everything is fine, but distance is not the same as healing. It simply delays the moment when reality finally catches up. Once the distractions fade, the quiet moments return, and life settles down, many avoidants begin seeing the relationship from a completely different perspective. They may finally recognize the emotional safety, trust, patience, and consistency they once had. But by then, life may have moved forward. The other person may have healed, grown stronger, and started a new chapter. That is why waiting for someone else's realization is rarely the path to peace. The most valuable lesson is not about whether an avoidant comes back. It is about understanding yourself. Real healing begins when your happiness no longer depends on another person's timing, emotional readiness, or ability to recognize your worth. Healthy relationships are not built on chasing guessing or hoping someone will eventually change. They are built on honesty, emotional security, mutual effort, and two people who are willing to communicate even when conversations are uncomfortable. Those qualities create lasting love, while emotional avoidance often creates confusion and distance. If there is one thing to remember from this video, let it be this. Avoidants do have emotions, but they often experience and express them in ways that are very different from what most people expect. Their silence should not automatically be mistaken for indifference. At the same time, delayed regret does not always mean the relationship can or should be rebuilt. Awareness is not the same as transformation. Missing someone is not the same as becoming emotionally available. Lasting change only happens when someone is willing to face their fears, take responsibility for their patterns, and consistently choose healthier ways of connecting. So instead of asking, will they ever realize what they've lost, try asking a more powerful question. Am I building relationships where both people feel safe, respected, understood, and free to grow together? That single question can change the direction of your future far more than waiting for answers from the past. If this video gave you a new perspective, don't let it end here. Subscribe to the channel for more psychology-based insights into relationships, attachment styles, and human behavior that can help you build stronger and healthier connections. Give this video a like if you found it valuable, and share it with someone who may be struggling to understand an avoidant partner or recover from a confusing breakup. Your support helps us create more content like this and reach people who truly need it. Before you go, tell us in the comments, which stage surprised you the most and why. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to read today. Thank you for watching. Take care of yourself, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next video.